Hey, Probstats kids, this is Dr. Callahan with Week 2 Thursday. How are you guys doing? I hope you're having a wonderful week. So go ahead and pause the video and answer the following 3 questions for your warm-up log. All right, let's go ahead and create the assignment for your class for today. And we're just going to go to assignments. Go to create. And this is going to be for week 2, Thursday. And just keep in mind that yesterday for Wednesday, you guys had a quiz and assessment for your assignment. So if you have not turned it in yet, just keep in mind that you will have a 0 for that until it is completed. So far up to this point, you have 2 quizzes, one from week 1, one from week 2. So just keep that in mind, you guys, and make sure you're not falling too behind. Your assignment here today is going to be as follows. We're going to go ahead and find the confidence interval using P hat and Q hat. And I know you're like, what is that? It is something different. And so Probstats semester 2. Fun is going to be using P hat and Q hat. There we go. Hold on a second. Let's go ahead and redo this. All right, your instructions are as follows. Week 2, Thursday. Make sure you guys watch the video in its entirety. It should be equivalent of 45 minutes instructions with your activities. There are 2 channels that you guys need for this class. One is a YouTube channel, and the other one link is going to be for your textbook homework. You need to show your textbook homework. Show work on the back of your guided notes on the template. So make sure you guys are doing that. Hard copies are available to pick up Monday through Friday outside of my classroom, and just make sure you're logging on for this class as you are following the distance learning schedule, which starts at 5th period 12:50 to 1:35 and 6th period 1:40 to 2:25. So make sure you guys are doing that because I will be checking your assignments during that time. Okay. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and assign you guys 10 points for it. And then also there are 2 Probstats classes. And as always, this is always due by 3:30 p.m., even though classes end at 3 o'clock, but I generally like to give you guys a little bit of extra time. All right, so your guided notes for today is going to be simply just inside your inside the guided notes that you traditionally have. So just keep that in mind. And with that said, let's go ahead and get started. So you guys had your textbook homework from Tuesday, and so if you have not corrected it, make sure you guys do so. These are the answers for that. It was for section 6.3, numbers 3 to 6 all, so just keep that in mind. And then from yesterday, you guys also had the following. You had the quiz, which you were supposed to be finding, your goals, your quiz on are you a good student, and then you're supposed to read the article and give me 5 things that were not included on the article. So this was your assignment here. So for today, this is the breakdown of what we're going to be doing. We're going to be using the packet that you guys have for your guided notes to talk about finding the confidence interval for P hat and Q hat. We're going to talk about objective number 9 and 10. We're going to start 6.3 day 2, and we're going to go over 2 different examples. Your objective today is simply going over the confidence interval for population proportions. There are 5 different steps. And then, of course, in class, you're going to complete objective number 9 and 10. And in addition to that, you have your homework tonight, which is 3 to 6 all on your Google Doc. So if you're like, well, where is the Google Doc and where can I find the textbook for that? Because I don't have a textbook. Remember, if you click on your assignment, right here where it says probability and statistics Google Doc, this link right here, go ahead and click on that link. And ta-da, here is your assignment for all of the entire semester. So you're looking for week 2 Thursday. So you just simply scroll down over here. And then there you have today's stuff right here. And you are supposed to go ahead and do them. And this is what you have right there. And actually what I just noticed is I posted on Friday. So what I can do is I can go ahead, I'm just gonna move this over a little bit. Right here. Week 2 Thursday. And I am going to let's try that one more time. Here we go. I'm going to go over to this here. Perfect. And we're going to go ahead and put that info right here. Oops. No, I don't like that. Paste without formatting. There we go. And then I'm going to move the textbook right here. Perfect. So now you guys go ahead and have the textbook for the assignment for that. Okay, so 3 to 6, and that is for tonight. Okay. All right, so with that said, let's go ahead and continue on with our notes for today. All right, so turn over to 6.3, and this is going to be the beginning of your notes in class. Okay, so your objective today is, can you consider a point for estimate for population proportion? Can you construct and interpret confidence interval for the population proportion? In addition to, can you determine the minimum sample size required when estimating population proportions? All right. The essential idea is, can we estimate the value of the population proportion by using sample data? And point of estimate is basically a single value estimate for the P, which is the population proportion of the successes denoted by P hat. And that is equal to X over N. And what that means is that the X is a number of successes in the sample, and the N signifies the sample size. The point of estimate for the proportion failures is going to be 1 minus P hat, which is equal to Q hat. And the symbols that you read with a P hat and Q hat are read as P hat and Q hat. So essentially that is equal to the word hat. Now let's go over an example. Okay. It says, in a survey of 1,000 US teens, 372 said that they own smartphones. Find a point estimate for the population proportion of US teens who owns smartphones. So I have 1,000 and 372. Those are the two that is given to me. So what I'm going to do right now is, I know that P hat formula is equal to X over N. X is a number of successes. N is a number of trials, okay? So my X in this case is going to be the number of teens that says they own smartphones. My N is the total number of trials or the total number of teens that were surveyed, okay? So how many people have cell phones? 372. Out of how many people did they survey? 1,000. I would have to say that the survey was probably done in like 2010 or something, because in 2021, I think every single teenager, if not maybe 99%, has access to either an iPad or a cell phone. So, or not, maybe like a tablet. But yeah, 372 out of 1,000 seems like it's fairly low. So go ahead and take your calculator and put this into a decimal. Which will give you a 0.372. And if you go ahead and change that to a percentage, which means you move the decimal 2 spaces to the right, that's 37.2% of teenagers have cell phones. And again, I think that's actually a very, very low percentage. So I'm thinking this study was probably done back in 2010. So once I find my P hat, I now want to go ahead and find my Q hat, which is 1 minus P hat. And that is going to be equal to 1 minus 0.372, which is 0.628, or 62.8%. And now you have 2 of these data, and you're like, what does this mean with a percentage? These are the percentage of teens with a cell phone. And this one are the percentage of teens without. And those are your answers for this. And just remember that with these 2 percentages, they should always add up to 100. So always add up equal to 100%. And if it doesn't, that means you subtracted something incorrectly. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the 5 different steps that we need for this. All right, constructing a confidence interval for P. So just as a quick little reminder, remember P hat is equal to X over N, which is going to be called the probability of success. Similar to that, you should also know that opposite of success is failures. So Q hat is 1 minus P hat, and that is the probability, there we go, of opposite of success is failures. And just remember, when you add P hat plus Q hat, it should always equals to 1 or 100%. All right, here are some of the guidelines for constructing a confidence interval for population proportions. So there are 5 different steps, okay? Step number 1, identify the sample statistic N and X. So remember back in the last example, it was a number of students with cell phones, 372, that will be the X. And then N is generally the bigger number, and that's 1,000 because there were 1,000 students surveyed. Step number 2 is find the point estimate, which is P hat. P hat is X over N, but then similarly, you also want to find Q hat, which is 1 minus P hat. Number 3, verify the sampling distribution of P can be approximated by a normal distribution. And what that means is that you're going to have to go ahead and look at the Z-score chart. Then following that, for step number 4 is find the critical value Z that corresponds to the confidence interval. Number 5, find the margin of error. And if you look at it, it's ZC square root P hat times Q hat over N. This is an important formula to have. And number 6, find the left and right endpoint and confidence interval. And there are 2, okay? And just remember, 90% is always going to be a confidence interval of 0.90. 95% is going to be the confidence of interval of 0.95, or the C-value of that. Now, your ZC for 90% is always 1.96, or excuse me, I actually did that incorrectly. 1.645, and your ZC value for 95% is 1.96. And these are going to be the most common ones. And I will probably highlight this just so you memorize them. This is important. And then lastly, your answers will always be written in this format. P hat minus E is less than P is less than P hat plus E. Let's go on to example 2 so we can go over an example and you guys can see how to go about doing this. All right, so here we go. Example 2. Okay, it says use a data example from example 1. To construct a 95% confidence interval for the population proportion of teens who owns a smartphone. All right, so step 1, identify the statistic N, which is 1,000, X, which is going to be 372. Step 2, estimate the P hat, which we did before. Remember, your P hat was 0.372, and your Q hat is 1 minus that, which is going to be 0.628. Step number 3, verify N times P hat is bigger or equal to 5. So let's make sure we do that. N is going to be 1,000. P is going to be 0.372, which is going to be equal to, multiply that out, 372. Is that greater or equal to 5? Yes, it is. And then also you got to make sure you check out the second part, which is N times Q hat. N again is 1,000 times Q hat, which is going to be 0.628, and that's equal to 628. And is that greater than 5? Yep, it is. So I am good to go. So I'm going to put a check mark right there for number 3, because this is verify that your sampling of P and Q is bigger than 5. So it is. And the fourth step, find the critical value Z that corresponds to the confidence interval. Well, given the fact that your confidence interval is going to be 95%, a 95% confidence interval is equal to 0.95. And remember, your ZC value that I told you that was the most common for 95% was 1.96. So I have that. So then for number 5, find the margin of error. This is the formula. So E is equal to ZC. ZC is 1.96 times the square root of P hat. Well, P hat that we found before was right here, 0.372 times Q hat, which is 0.628, divided by N. N is 1,000 because there were 1,000 students surveyed. So then we're going to work everything inside the square root. So take your calculator and do 3.72 times 0.625, then divided by 1,000. And you should have 0.0002. Now you're going to take your calculator and you're going to go ahead and square root the 0.0002. And that should give you a 0.014. And then lastly, multiply it to 1.96, which then will give you a Z value of 0.027. All right, so now that I have this value, I can now plug it into this interval. P hat is 0.372 minus my E value, 0.027, is less than P hat 0.372 plus 0.027. And so what is your answer then? You should get on the left side 0.345 and on the right side 0.399. And that is your answer. And that's the 5 steps. All right, so with that said, let's go ahead and go on to this example number 3. It says construction confidence interval for P. The figure on the right is from a survey of 498 US adults constructing a 99% confidence interval for the population of US adults who think that teenagers are more dangerous drivers. All right, so let's go ahead and get this started. All right, so here are your 6 different steps. And I'm gonna have you guys do this one on your own. So I'm gonna do a U-try, but I will guide you along the way, okay? So step number 1, identify the statistics N. Well, statistics of N is gonna be 498. Now keep in mind that you need to find your point estimate, which is your P hat. And if you take a look at this part right over here, your P hat is going to be questions on teenagers. So it's 71% are dangerous drivers. So 0.71 is going to be your P hat. Then similarly, 1 minus 0.71 is going to be your Q hat, which is 0.29. Your confidence interval is at a 99%, so C is 0.99. Now the last one I gave you 95% for the ZC, but for 99% your ZC is 2.576. So now that you have these information, go ahead and do the next step for 5 and 6 by plugging into this equation. Pause the video and do that. So your E is equal to ZC, which is 2.576, times P hat, which is 0.71, times Q hat, which is 0.29, divided by N, which is 498. Grab your calculator. We're going to work inside the parentheses or inside the square root first. Once you go ahead and do 0.71 times 0.29, hit enter. And then you're going to go ahead and divide it by 498. You should have a square root of 0.0004. Once you square root the 0.0004, you should get a 0.02. And then once you multiply that 0.02 with a 2.576, you should have a 0.052. That is your E value. I want you to go ahead and put this into this interval, and that is your answer. All right, you guys, that's basically it. What I would like you guys to work on now is to go on to objective number 1 and 9 and 10. The answers are given to you, so go ahead and work on 9 and 10 on your own, following those 6 different steps. And when you're done with this, please remember to go ahead and do your homework on the back of your template. And your homework is for 3 to 6 all on the Google Doc. As always, stay safe and healthy, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.